Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Veg Networking Canada, where vegan plant-based companies connect and collaborate. It is important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that we are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. Today, we have a special guest, a champion for the elimination of single-use plastics, passionately sharing her love for animal welfare and environmental justice, thriving as a second generation mother of five / entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Veg Networking Canada is pleased to introduce the founder of Stop and Fill Zero Waste Solutions. Welcome, Mary Jane Holmquist.
Hello, everybody.
MJ, as you're known, can you tell us the story of what led you to go vegan?
Yeah, so actually, I started out as a vegetarian when I was 10 years old. So I grew up in Manitoba, and my family kind of lived on like a hobby farm. We didn't really have sort of a hobby farmish sort of thing, but it actually came from them butchering the chickens that I just was done. I said to my mom, there's no way I'm ever going to eat meat again. And she just kind of passed it off as, oh, that will just be a fad. But I was a vegetarian from the time I was 10 till I was about 24 years old. And then after I had my second child, my iron was like scary low. I was getting booster shots and stuff. And the doctor at the time had told me, oh, you should start eating a little bit of meat, to bring your iron levels up. And, I honestly lacked the education on that. So I did start eating light meat until about 12, 13 years ago is when I actually found out I was allergic to dairy and eggs. And for me, that was my biggest sign that that's perfect. I'm going to officially go vegan. And but before I did that, I was actually trying to transition. Like I did eat very little meat. I kind of was more like maybe like tuna or something. But anyways, um, but I really understood that I could actually raise my iron level naturally without all the other stuff. So now I have no issues with my iron. Actually, my doctor's amazed that how my iron level has remained stable after becoming a vegan. So yeah, so it's just good to educate yourself. But yeah, so I guess I've been about 12 to 13 years now that I've been completely vegan.
That's awesome. And can I just touch on that a little bit more? Because you probably, other people listening, have either seen it or maybe even have gone through it themselves. Iron and being vegan and like those things don't go together. And then,
Mm.
you hear people maybe reference like I think it's called the iron fish that you can like put in foods that you cook. And other people are going to say make sure that you have high vitamin C foods because that's actually how you can absorb. Do, all that to say, do you have anything that you can just quickly share to folks about like how you did that?
Well, I sought a natural path to really I went to someone who knew what they were talking about. So to me, that was I wanted to go to someone who knew the body and knew how to heal it naturally. So I went to a natural path, and she really talked to me about having a really good plant-based iron. And so it's a very concentrated capsule that is all made of plants, and everything in it is just, it just helps your body to naturally absorb it. Because the stuff that they give you to give you iron it makes you nothing but constipated. I know that's right, but it's not good for you. It really doesn't absorb properly. So where this actually goes through your body and absorbs better. There's so many great plant-based iron supplements, especially as a woman. As you get older, you don't need as much with your hormone changes and stuff. So I think for me is really seeking a professional who really knows what they're talking about. And that's what I did. And she just made such a huge difference in for that purpose.
Love that. Love that.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so in the bio, we mentioned that your mom was also a mother of five, as are
Mhm.
you. We also mentioned that your mom was an entrepreneur, as you are. So needless to say, there was probably something there that like sparked you. But question is, what is your entrepreneurial origin story?
Okay, well, I will go back and to talk a little bit about my mom in the other questions up ahead, but definitely she was a huge inspiration to me. I think I just seen Because my mom had to work a job, and I'll explain a little bit more of that later, but my mom had to work a job, but she did a lot of stuff part-time. And so my family were immigrants. And, if you ever come from an immigrant family, you really hear the fact that they took everything to get here and now you need to make something of yourself. So that really spoke to me. And I knew that making something of myself was not going to be working a job. And so I did a ton of things. So my husband and I have been married for 32 years, and we've always been entrepreneurs from day one. Probably not the best way to start a marriage, but we've always run businesses. So we have one business that we've run from the beginning, which is a painting and power washing and building maintenance company. And then I've done tons of things. I was a financial advisor as well. I've done, multi-level marketing things, and I've had a daycare, home daycare. I had a scrapbooking store at one time. Like I've done a ton of things. And then like I started being a travel agent, and then now I've kind of now I started this business. So I've done a lot of things that have kind of, worked and maybe didn't work, and but they all kind of have the same base, I guess you could say. So yeah, I don't know, we've always just knew that my husband and I both are very entrepreneurial, which sometimes if you've ever been in the dynamic where both the husband and wife are very, sometimes, you have to work out how your differences is how your styles are on things, but it just works. I think it's great that we both have the same mindset of that.
Awesome. So maybe you can help everybody understand, everybody listening, a little bit more about Stop and Fill Zero Waste Solutions, and then use that sort of as a springboard to answer the next question, which is where is your brand going in the
Mm.
future?
Yeah. So Stop and Fill right now is a mobile zero waste store. That's the only way I can think of how I can put that. So we basically, I designed and retrofitted a van to go either direct to consumers or at markets so that they can come and fill their wares. So if you think about it before, um, plastic has only been invented since after the war. So we're talking mid 1940s. So that's not a very long time. If you see how much plastic is on the earth that never goes away, it's quite shocking. And so I think when we look back at how people used to shop, this is kind of that way, going back to those roots of just refilling and reusing. Um, and so right now we have one van, and then we are at markets, we deliver, or people can book the van to come directly to their home. And so, our hope is to get more vans, obviously, to service more areas at the same time. We might open a storefront that may, come into play one day. That's something we've looked at. The overhead is really high, so we'd like to kind of keep the prices competitive for consumers. So it helps not having a storefront like that. We do run it out of our business, but we aren't naive to the fact that if we want to grow, that there's some other things that we may have to do with that. Um, there are some product lines that my daughter and I would like to eventually bring out our own product line. So yeah, so there's definitely some things along the ways. Hopefully we'll have time to develop those things as we go along, but that's kind of where we'd like to move towards, I guess. Yeah.
That's great. Now, zero waste is not a trend, like hopefully and arguably, like it's not a trend. It's more of a transformation. That's why we phrase the next question that way. Like, what are some trends or transformations in your industry? And it's obvious that the industry that you're in, zero waste, in and of itself is sort of a transformation. Like people are starting to become more aware of how they shop to your earlier comments. But also you just mentioned that's like a total transformation, something brand new too that you're carving out is like zero waste, but now mobile zero waste. So feel free to dive more into that and or let us know like what are some trends or transformations in your industry?
Mm-hmm. I think people are becoming more aware of what's going on in the environment. And I think as a vegan, we understand how much the cattle industry and the fishing industry impacts our environment. But when you actually look at how they impact the plastics and everything in the ocean too, and the pollution that happens, they kind of go a little bit hand in hand. Um, Especially the fishing industry, when you look at the amount of plastic that they pull out of the ocean. I don't know if you've ever seen the ocean cleanup, and if you ever go on their videos and see what they pull out of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch area, probably about 80 to maybe 70 to 80% of that is fishing waste. So that kind of goes along with my thought too, is, not supporting that industry as well. So it kind of, to me, goes hand in hand. If I'm going to try to eliminate my plastic that I use, I also need to look at what that industry is doing to produce that plastic as well. So supporting that, you're just supporting that habitual plastic that's going in the water. So I think people are becoming more aware of what the environmental impact is. I think more and more people are looking at how much plastic they throw away on a regular basis. Like if you went through and looked at everything that you did, like we always encourage people, do a garbage audit to see what you're throwing out. And plastic can only be recycled so much. There's other better products that can be recycled, like glass and aluminum, things like that. So, even just the shift of, if you're going to buy a can of pop out, well, then buy a can instead of a bottle, because that aluminum can be recycled over and over and over and over again, as opposed to the bottle. So just, there's so many things that you can transition, but I do believe that people are becoming more aware. People are wanting to you try to use less plastic, and just sort of seeing what they can do to help with that, I guess you could say, with that elimination.
Yeah, and I guess that's sort of the problem that you're solving, because it's one thing to be aware and understand that reducing plastic or the way that you are doing things, that's one thing, but then to be able to have access to the products or the goods that you want
Mhm.
so that's interesting. Um, so this one, I, all the questions are this way, but there's no right or wrong answers. We've had people answer from what they have done in the past, what they are currently doing, or what they're looking to do in the future. And also people have answered it from what they do personally and or through their business. But the question is centered around giving back and charity. And
Mhm.
so what does Stop and Fill, or what does MJ do in that regard?
So we have a few charities that our other business donates to as well, and then personally. So we donate to our church, but we also donate to other organizations. Like a couple of my big things was World Concern, and World Concern kind of inhabits a few things, helping especially young girls be educated, and having the proper clothes and things that they need in order to go to school. Um, so that is a big one for me. They also help the community, and not just women, but also men, to kind of teach them, say, that old wise tale or whatever that used to say, instead of having them just give them a fish, teach them to fish, that kind of thing. So they really help them to farm, or help them to sew, or help them to develop a business, and then be able to support themselves from there. So I really love the organization, and it impacts a community. It doesn't just impact one space. So I like that. The other thing that we also help is here in the Lower Mainland is like the breakfast club. I think we don't realize how many people struggle with food insecurities. So that's really, I couldn't imagine as a parent not being able to have the money to buy my child food, and just have that dignity for them to be able to get food to help provide for their family. So that's another, through food banks and through the breakfast clubs and things like that. Um, And then we also like do random charities with building wells, like for people to have proper drinking water. And then also the ocean cleanup is another one that we have funded before. And the newest one that I kind of help with here and there, and I've lost the name of it. It might come to me as it goes along, but it's a company that you sew like it's like a crossbody bag, and then you give it to this company. I'll get the name, you give it to the organization, and they hire the women in Africa, in particular, more Africa, to sew reusable pads for the girls. So a lot of people don't realize that girls in these countries, they often miss a week of school because of their menstrual cycles. And so this company basically gives them the ability to have these reusable pads so that they can actually go to school all the time and not miss out. It's such a wonderful organization. So like I have sewn some of their crossbody bags. My daughter has sewn their bags. We've done like donations towards them. And I'm sorry, the name is just completely has blocked my mind right now. But it's a really great program anyway. So I think it's important for the girls to be able to attend school.
Absolutely. Is that organization local to you or?
No, it's all over the world actually. Like people
Mm.
from all over the world support the organize. I cannot believe my brain has forgotten the name of it. I may get it at the end.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. And then what's the name of your church that you support?
So we go to the Legacy Church of the Nazarene in Surrey here.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so what are some resources such as books, podcasts, apps, documentaries, websites, could be 1,000 different types of resources that you would recommend specifically for other entrepreneurs?
Oh boy, I had a hard time narrowing this one down, but there are definitely a few that I really love. And one in particular, like he's an old gentleman, and you may not have heard of him, but he probably has the best when it comes to setting goals, probably the best easy way is Jim Rohn. And you can actually go online and look at some of his things. Phenomenal leader, phenomenal at goal setting. He's one of my favorite. I go through it every year when I go to look at my goals. I kind of refresh with him. The other one I love is John Maxwell. He has so many like jumpstart your thinking, how successful people grow, 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, 21 irrefutable or indispensable qualities of a leader. There's like I can go on with him. I have probably every book that he's ever made. I think this is one of my favorites is I know you can't this backwards, but Make Today Count. It really makes you think about what you do in the day. I really appreciate this book. There's tons of him. Another one that I love is Stephen R. Covey, which is the 7 Habits of Effective People. It's a really good book. David Chilton, the wealthy barber, he kind of makes you think about some things. Um, Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking, another really great book. So along like The Compound Effect, another one, Dan Hardy, he did the Success Magazine. Yeah, that's a really phenomenal book. I had a really good outcome from that. And I just bought this book. If anyone's ever the day trading attention, I need to improve my social media. So I bought this book. This is what I'm going to tackle next. So I would say, those main guys for me as uh great literature. I think you can't go wrong with them.
Fully agree, fully agree. And that last one that you mentioned, I don't know if many people have heard of that guy before. Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, Vaynerchuk. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
joking. Yeah, I think everybody knows who that is. Awesome. So yeah, dig into that and you'll enjoy that one too. So you mentioned your mom. That's obviously going to come up here as we ask, like, what does inspiration mean to you, internally or externally, as well too. I'd like to ask you, maybe you don't remember, maybe you're still working with her or not, I don't know, but I think the naturopath that you started working with is pretty inspirational too. So if you do remember her name, feel free, or her business or whatnot, feel free to give her a shout out.
Mm,
But
awesome.
yeah, what does inspiration mean to you?
Well, I think a little bit about my mom's story. So my parents immigrated from Colombia. My dad actually was born and raised in Scotland. And then after the war, he had this burning desire to go into the mission field. That's where he met my mom. And they got married and had some kids there and then immigrated to Canada. That's kind of like the, Cole's notes of it all. Um, and then after they immigrated to Canada, I actually was born in Canada. I'm the first generation Canadian. And then we lived in Colombia. I lived in Colombia, and my younger brother, well, my other brother that's closer to my age, and I lived in Colombia with my mom for the first 4.5 years. And then we were in Canada full time. But it wasn't too long after that they immigrated that my dad got sick with cancer. And he passed away when I was 7. And basically, my mom was left to raise 5 children in a strange country. She barely knew the language. She couldn't drive at the time. So in a matter of year, like after my dad passed away, she basically learned the language, got her driver's license, and got a job working at a hospital. And she did that to provide basically, but then she did things to on the side. So my mom was an amazing cake decorator. She's an amazing seamstress. So she would do, and she would do tons of like, she invented her own chocolate. Like she would have these craft fairs with this chocolate, but I saw like how nothing stopped her. Like, she could have tucked tail and went home. Her whole family, she's the oldest of 13. Her whole family lives in Colombia still to this day. So if you think about it, she could have went home, but she knew that their dream was to provide us the opportunity to be in Canada. And she just stuck with that and did everything she could. My mom struggled. We were never hungry, but it was a hard go for her. But it inspired me to see that no matter what your circumstance is, like how you can just figure things out. I don't know how on earth she ever figures things out. This was before YouTube. If she wanted to wallpaper a wall, she went and got a book from the library and did the whole thing. It was just amazing. So I think to me that was a huge inspiration for me to see how she could just make something out of her own brain. Like she just thought it and just did it. There was no time to prepare. She just thought, oh, this is a good idea, I'm just going to go for it, sort of thing. And I just thought that was really cool. And yeah, I don't know, it was very inspiring for me. And where I grew up in Manitoba, I grew up in the middle of potato country. So there's only like a couple places in all of North America that grows potatoes well, and Manitoba is one of them, Prince Edward Island, and then like Idaho obviously is another area. But where I grew up is the plant, which is McCain's, that provides the McDonald's French fries. So you can imagine everyone and their dog works at the plant. When I was 16, I was going to apply there, and my mom would not allow me to apply there. She's like, no, she goes, because no offense to the people who work there, but she said, it's a hole that you'll never get out of. She goes, you need to make your own way. You can't just because you'll never leave there. And it's true. I have friends who work there. They've worked, and no disrespect at all. Like, it's great. It's a great living. So I'm not disrespecting them, but they're still there today. So I thought that was pretty bold. Like I'm still very thankful that she encouraged me to, make my own way and think of my own way instead of like working there. Yeah.
Yeah, the power of a mom, hey, to be able to realize that you do have that entrepreneurial spark and spirit, and to prevent you from having it snuffed out.
Yes.
Pretty
Yeah.
powerful. Awesome, awesome. There's also a really great potato farm, Heppel's in Surrey too, by the way,
Oh,
in
yes. Yeah.
northern BC.
But we're talking potatoes like this.
Yeah, yeah, big
Like
ones.
they're massive. Like
Yeah.
they're beyond um They're giants. I don't even know how to explain it until you see how giant these potatoes are. Like it comes a whole nother.
It's hard to comprehend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the
Oh,
naturopath or her
yes.
business?
Dr. Kobe, and she's in Maple Ridge.
And Kobe, just, the,
Yeah.
no,
Let's
it's
see.
okay. No worries.
I think it's essential. Let me see. I can look it up quickly.
Yeah, you're right. Like finding a naturopath and starting at base, like figuring out what the blood is. Do you have the name?
Yes. It's Essential Health Natural Wellness Clinic, and it's Dr. Kobe, Cobi.
Oh yeah, totally would
Yeah.
not have thought that.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
she's absolutely amazing. She specializes also in women's hormones, and there's tons of things that can't go wrong with her. Yeah, it's great.
Very cool, very cool. So before we get to the final question about advice, lessons, tips, that kind of thing, we do have a question here from someone who's with us right now, and
Mhm.
that question is, do you get any customers asking for items made from animal products? And if so, what do you tell them?
I do not actually. Um, I actually have two things on the van. I know that sounds funny. I have two things on the van that have animal product in it. One is a goat's milk soap, goat and oat milk soap. And it's specifically for people who suffer from really severe eczema. And then we also have beeswax wraps. So those are probably the only two things we have that are that have an animal product in it. But other than that, everything else is on our van is completely vegan. But no, no one asks us for anything with animal products.
Got it.
Um, yeah,
Got it. So do you have any advice, lessons, tips for other entrepreneurs? Big open-ended question.
I know. Oh, I think my biggest thing is not to overthink. I think too often, especially for people who like to get ideas, sometimes it you have to take that next step. So just you do need to obviously plan and do your steps that you need to do, but don't overthink it. Just start it because you learn so much from yeah, sometimes you make a fumble, yes, but that's how you learn and grow. And too often people don't want to take that, they don't want to do that stumble, but you have to in order to grow, I think, as an entrepreneur. um I think just sometimes we spend too much time thinking and just not doing. I think, and the other thing I would suggest is you need to set some goals, but realistic goals, but then also big goals, because the big goals is what's going to get you to that next step. For me, if I just set always just these realistic goals, I don't push myself to kind of achieve something more. So um, I think setting realistic goals and also big goals, like your big dream goals. And I think the other thing I would say is finding a good mentor. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same business, but someone who you can trust and is a good mentor, or finding groups like WeBC for women in business. They have really good mentorship programs, and other things like that. And I think just, the importance of going back to the goals is just having something to aim for. Like what is keeping you doing what you're doing? Like for me, my family is a huge inspiration, like for me to keep doing what I'm doing. My daughter, my 20-year-old daughter helps me in the business. So if you ever come to the van, that would be probably her that you'll see. And my son, who's 30, he also helps right now when I'm going to be away for a couple of weeks. So him and my daughter are actually taking over for me. And so, yeah, so to me, that's a big inspiration to be able to um, provide a business for them, maybe that legacy that they can take on and keep growing it as time goes on.
Awesome. Love that. So if it's okay, so another question came in and it is based on what you were just talking about. And that question is, can you give us an example of a moment where you didn't overthink things?
Okay. Well, when the moment that I didn't overthink things, I I'm a little bit of an action person, so that's a bit of a hard question for me to answer. Um, my husband and I just dive in. Sometimes I think we should maybe stop and think a little bit. So I that might be a hard question for me because we just kind of just we get an idea and I look at all the parameters of it and we just get to going to work. Um I don't think I overthink things. I think I'm too much of an action person sometimes where I have to almost hold myself back a little bit and think, okay, hold it. You need to do this sort of thing. So there is some stages where you overthink, or maybe you need to pull yourself back a bit. So I hope that answers the question, but I'm definitely more of a dive in sort of person and just like, let's go, let's go.
There you go. And yeah, really good point about smart goals are cool and they're good and they're important, but that as people have heard it, like BHAG or big hairy audacious goal, like having that
Yeah.
pie in the sky, it's impossible to do anyway, but I'm still going to visualize it, still write it down, still have that goal. Very, very important.
Yeah.
So, MJ, before we let everybody know your website and your Instagram so they can tap in and stay connected with you and what you have going on with Stop and Fill, is there anything that came up in today's conversation that you want to go back to or that we missed or any announcements, anything like that?
There is actually one that I thought about is I think in anything like in the vegan community and also in the zero waste community, we can get very judgmental of people who are not at the same maybe level of thinking, or maybe they are beginning their journey. And I think for me is I really want to come across, especially in the zero waste business, is every little step helps. Every little thing that you do helps. And same with people who are starting a vegan lifestyle. If it means it's only 1 or 2 days a week, that's a beginning, right? So I'm trying to really get the culture of not this judgmental that you're not vegan enough or you're not zero waste enough. Just to really just encourage people in their journey, because it is a hard step for people. It's a hard step to change your habits, and sometimes it's a huge lifestyle change for people. And I think every little step that they do should be commended.
Awesome. Great way to finish it off. So everybody, you can find out more about what MJ has going on with Stop and Fill online, stopandfill.ca. Exactly how it sounds,
Yep.
stopandfill.ca, and on Instagram it's at stopandfill. All right, well, thank you for joining us, MJ. It's been a great conversation. The founder of Stop and Fill Zero Waste Solutions. Everybody who's with us live and everybody who's listening, thank you for spending some time with us and listening to what we have going on here at Veg Networking Canada. And we'll catch you soon on another episode. But for now, take care. Bye for now.
Thank you.